I knew I wanted to be a carpenter. I knew I wanted to be a builder. I knew I wanted to have a construction company. So doing English, doing maths, doing science, I knew I weren't going to do it. So I wouldn't say misbehaved. I would say I had other interests. Comparison is the thief of joy. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Things like that. Continually tell yourself, and it just helps streamline you to success. There's lots of YouTube videos, motivational YouTube videos, but they're true. You've got to be your biggest fan. You've got to strive to go forward all the time because situations are going to arise. And if you crumble and you let them get to your head, then you can't duck. You've got to power through it, and you've got to keep going and be strong-willed and strong-minded, really. So we got approached by a client to do some cupboards in their house. And as that went on, they sort of said, "Oh, look, can you take down this wall for us? Can you do this?" And it turned into a full-scale refurbishment. I then rung up the people I knew. I said, "Look, mate, I need a hand on this. Like, can you help me out?" So a few of the guys that I knew come in, like other carpenters, stuff like that, and we had the refurbishment going on. While that was going on, I had another client ring me, said, "Look, can you go and do some skirting?" So I rung someone else I knew and said, "Look, can you go and install the skirting on this job?" And then we were doing a cupboard job ourselves. And I remember driving down the road and thinking, I've got 3 jobs on here. Like, this is what I wanted. Like, this is going well.
First of all, something really interesting that I found about yourself is that you're younger than a lot of people think you are, right?
Yeah, mate, I've had a paper around.
Like a lot of builders notoriously are probably like in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean, in episode 3 we had Gary on, right? And Gary, I believe, is like, I think he said 64. 64. And so how old are you, mate?
I'm 27 years old. 27, but I look
27 years old.
5.
See, that's crazy to think about because I'm 24. I turned 24 last week.
Yep.
And I've done okay, but like to think of what you managed to build at that age is crazy because a lot of people when they're like 27, they're just like either starting out or maybe they're getting going. And I know your business is still relatively new, right? How long have you been going for with Joshua Lewis?
So we have been limited now for 3 years. I did start the company when I was 19 years old. I don't know if you want to get into that now or it's a bit of a long one.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So first of all, anyway, thank you for inviting me on. This is my first podcast, so exciting. So I am Joshua Lewis, the managing director and owner of Joshua Lewis Carpentry and Construction. I started Joshua Lewis when I was 19 years old in 2016, I believe. We solely started, it was me and an apprentice doing second fix carpentry projects. So your wardrobes, bespoke cupboards, things like that. I never actually got taught that in my apprenticeship. It's sort of something that was self-taught. It was something that I really always liked. So yeah, I got into that and we grew in that. We started to get a reputation in our area, got in with the school mums, where some people watching this will realise that getting in with school mums is great because school mums talk. So we developed a sort of reputation where people were going, "Oh, look, Joshua Lewis has done our wardrobe and we can't book him in," and things like that. So we started to create a sort of high-end feel, and a lot of people wanted us to do their work. I've always wanted to grow, and I've always had a bit of an obsessive personality. So I think it was destined to grow. So that was in 2016. Obviously, we had the pandemic and things, but yeah. So we went limited 3 years ago. We've got 16 people with us now. So yeah, we've grown a lot in that time. I've made a lot of failures. 27 years old. I'm really young to be in the position I am, and with that, it's there's been a lot of naivety in my career, but I think it's helped streamline to where we are now. We're still growing. I've still got some really big plans. But yeah, that's a little brief summary there.
That's interesting because in my head, I thought maybe you said, you said you're 27. In my head, I'm like, okay, maybe you started this company like maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, but
Mhm.
you said 3 years ago, and then you said you started when you were 19. When you were 19, were you working for someone else, or you said
Yeah.
you were doing school months? Yeah.
So deeper into my past, really, I always had a passion for carpentry. So there's videos of me when I was a kid. So my mum and dad aren't, none of my family are builders. I mean, my uncle was a bathroom fitter, and my granddad, who I think I take a lot of inspiration from, was very handy with woodworking, and that's sort of where my passion grew. So there's videos of me at like 10 years old with a big sort of chop saw and skill saws in the garden, building bird boxes, things like that. I'm sure my mum was ripping her hair out, but my granddad always said, "Look, he's fine." And I would say I've been lucky in a sense that I've always been very streamlined. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So going through school, uh, came up with some challenges where I knew I wanted to be a carpenter. I knew I wanted to be a builder. I knew I wanted to have a construction company. So doing English, doing maths, doing science, I knew I weren't going to do it. So I wouldn't say misbehaved. I would say I had other interests. I did choose, so further along in school, when we got to year 10, I believe. I don't know if this is still a thing in the schools in the UK, but you could choose options. So I chose the three options which were practical. I chose construction, drama, and PE. With construction, I loved it. I actually got a certificate of excellence, and it was just something that I had an interest in. So it's just something that I was really good at, and all my interest went into that. As soon as I left school, I went into a apprenticeship, carpentry apprenticeship, with a local construction company that we're still good friends with now. I done 3 years with them. As soon as I finished my apprenticeship, I wanted a pay rise. I was on, I think, £90 a day, running the site, running a team of guys. And I said, look, I want more money. And the answer was, Josh, you're 19 years old. We're not paying you more. So I worked out, if I do one job for myself, I can do what I would have earned with you in a week. So straight away, one of my own, and done exactly that. And funnily enough, they now employ us to do all the carpentry on their projects.
That's such a crazy story, and that's crazy to think about that you were 19 on site, like managing everything.
Mhm.
Um, that's such a crazy thing to think about. But when you started out yourself, how did you even think about getting in with like school mums, or was it completely by accident?
Um, I've I have got quite bad OCD in the sense of everything is meticulous. Tidiness for me is a massive thing. So I think I didn't intend to get in with the school mums as such, and I didn't intend to at that age especially grow the reputation we did. At that time, 19 years old, you're seeing the pound notes, and I think that's what it was. I was obsessed with earning money, and I was obsessed with building something. I didn't really understand how to grow a reputation then, but somehow we done it quite well because we were very clean, we were very accurate with what we done. Admin lacked, and that's something that I fixed up very quickly. So yeah, I think just being tidy, doing good work, grew our reputation out of nowhere, and we were cheaper at that time. We didn't have no overheads, things like that, so that was another incentive. And I think just all round doing a good job, being nice, pleasant people, that helped build our reputation, and things grew on from them. We still carry the same reputation now with £1 million projects that I do with the wardrobes back when I was 19 years old. So everything is tidy. If you speak to any of my guys, everyone will tell you that I will come on site and that needs to be clean, that needs to be in the right order. Things like materials left on site, I can't stand having things scattered about. So everything needs to go in the right place, designated rooms for things, stuff like that. And I think that's helped build the reputation we have.
That's such a good trait, because a lot of people in construction, like, they kind of leave anything to do with cleaning or clearing up the site right till the end, right? Or they
Yeah.
even have someone on their team who's like solely responsible for all that. Like, your job is to make sure the site's clean after we're finished and to clear up all the mess. So the fact that you have that trait to like make sure everything's spotless, or
Yeah.
at least as close to spotless as possible. I think residential construction especially is super important, because when someone walks in their house, right, and they just see it like looking like up, like, oh, everything looks upside down,
Mhm.
it's probably not a nice feeling. So when they see someone who's actually cares about how everything looks and making sure everything's clean, and there's no like holes in the wall, for example, randomly for no reason, then it probably helps a lot. That's for sure. And I can tell straight away why the school moms probably resonated with how you work and everything. But no, I mean, that's one thing I want to touch on, actually, because a lot of people don't think about what you just said now, about getting into like a certain niche and getting into like a certain group of people, and they
Mhm.
don't think about that type of thing. And like mums, for example, are like the best audience you can target. If you're targeting anyone, moms are like the best. Like if you target guys, right, guys rarely talk about their personal lives with each other. It's more
Mhm.
about footy. They don't get like too close in terms of um like getting intimate and talking about the things that they keep to themselves, whereas moms are completely the opposite, right?
Mm.
Like the complete opposite. um so that's interesting. Now, when you started out your company, right, did you have like a turning point where you went from doing the carpentry and doing the wardrobes to like doing like conversions or extensions, or any of the big work?
I did, and I still remember this day. I don't want to sound cheesy, but I still remember smiling, driving around, like having that sort of stomach like drop feeling. That so we got approached by a client to do some cupboards in their house. Um, and as that went on, they sort of said, "Oh, look, can you take down this wall for us? Can you do this?" And it turned into a full scale refurbishment. I then rung up the people I knew. I said, "Look, mate, I need a hand on this. Like, can you help me out?" So a few of the guys that I knew come in, like other carpenters, stuff like that, and we had the refurbishment going on. While that was going on, I had another client ring me, said, "Look, can you go and do some skirting?" So I rung someone else I knew and said, "Look, can you go and install the skirting on this job?" And then we were doing a cupboard job ourselves. And I remember driving down the road and thinking, I've got 3 jobs on here. Like this is what I wanted. Like this is going well. So the guy that actually come and helped me at the refurbishment, I said to him, "Look, Cam, you might watch this." Cam Wild, he was. He's actually traveling right now, so he might not watch it. I said to him, "Look, do you want to come work for us? So I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to get into refurbishments. I think we could do this." So yeah, he come on board, and then things just grew and grew and grew. I then sort of got the taste for it. I got some more guys on board, Liam, Aiden, who's still with us now. And yeah, we started to do, it wasn't so much construction straight away. So we started to do a lot of carpentry jobs. So not just cupboards anymore. We started to do more first fix carpentry. I approached developers. We got on with them. We started to do second fix carpentry packages for developers. And things grew and grew and grew. I didn't have my business sense that I do now. So we weren't really running a profit. I thought things were well because the money was coming in. Taxman come and cleared us out. So I needed to fix up in that sense very quickly. We then got, what did we get? What did we get? We got one rear extension, which went well. I look back at it now and I cringe, but it went well. It went good. We didn't really, once again, didn't earn much money, but I was just happy to get an extension on our portfolio. And we've done a good job. The clients were happy. We got in with the architect. He was happy with us. So we got more jobs out of that. And then, yeah, we got onto a job that probably gave me a lot of wrinkles and is probably the biggest learning point in my entire career so far. So we priced a job, and it was the biggest job we'd done by a mile. It was £180,000, and at the time that was like, I was like, oh, this is it. Like I was looking at 30 grand profit, and like, oh my god, this is it. Like it's really going to go well. Turned out that we underpriced that job about £60,000. I stuck to it. A lot of companies would have folded. I built this company from young. There's no chance I was folding the company. I'd saved up some nice house savings, so that paid for it basically. I used my own personal savings to get the company out of debt. All of our subcontractors, all of our workers never missed a payment. So every week they were paid. We were £60,000 down. I couldn't afford the rent on the flat I was in at the time. So one of my friends come in and live with me. And yeah, it was a tough time. It was a tough time. It was the anxiety every day of just waking up and thinking, oh, I do not know how we're going to get through this day. That went on for a couple months. The client themselves knew that we were sort of underpriced, and we were basically running the job at 4 months for a complete cost on us. Unfortunately, she didn't really care. She pulled us up on jobs that we'd done for free. And yeah, I was happy to get out of that one. But with that in mind, I am extremely happy that it happened. After that, I took some time, really took some time away from my social life, away from my friends and family, and just dug deep into business, because no one teaches builders business. We're very good at what we do, but I can speak for a lot of builders here. I know a lot of my friends have been the same. No one teaches us business. We don't know margins. We don't know P&Ls. We don't know percentages, things like that. We know how to put walls up straight. We know how to hang doors. And I think this is a reason why a lot of construction companies fail in the first couple, maybe 3-4 years, because we don't know business, and you've got to teach yourself it. I didn't have people around me like I do now to ask. Everyone that I asked at the time didn't really take me seriously, so they were like, "Oh yeah, it's stressful, mate, isn't it? And there's not much help." So I chose books. There was a book called Profit First for Contractors. It was an audio book, and that opened my mind to profit margins, to the correct way of pricing. And yeah, so we got into that, and I started to implement that in the company. Things went well. I thought I still knew a lot at that time. I thought, look, cool. And then, yeah, I realized I didn't know as much as I needed to. Profit margins weren't just everything. We needed to break down your overhead, stuff like that. But more books and more researching. YouTube is a good thing. So self-taught my way into business, to be honest. And even then, I still thought I could take on the world myself, and sort of burnt out at both ends. So I'd corrected the business side, and I'd corrected the money side, and we were going well, but I was still trying to manage things on my own. I was still trying to be a bookkeeper. I was still trying to do all the invoicing, quoting, sales, everything. So I quickly found out about implementing the right people in the right places. And that, to me, has streamlined the business massively. It's such an important factor, because you'll just burn out. You can't do everything yourself. I am a bit of a control freak, but I've learned to let go and implement the right people. Moving on to 2024 now, we've got construction manager Kieran, we've got site managers, we've got bookkeeper, we've got admin. Shay, my girlfriend, is admin, and she also does our filming. And then we've got designated teams on site. We've got systems in place. Carpentry, which is a calendar app we use to help schedule the jobs, keep things on track, and give an estimate and a forecast on when we're going to need what, etc. But we're still learning. We're still learning.
That's such a crazy story, and I love that you actually mentioned that hard project that you did for that lady, because a lot of people don't talk about those moments online. They pretend like, if let's say they're doing well, right? They're doing like a couple million over the year in revenue. They kind of think they're some big shot, and they've made it or whatnot, and they hide those types of moments, and they don't talk about them publicly or to other people, because it makes them look like a bit of a cowboy, or might make them look bad.
Mm-hmm.
But like Chris touched on this in the very first episode of the podcast, and he talked about talking about your bad moments as well as your good, because when it comes to meeting people, they know whatever you say or whatever comes out of your mouth is going to be true, and it's going to be honest.
Yep.
in terms of what the job actually is. Like when you were in that moment, right? How much, like in terms of a percentage, how likely were you to give up in comparison to keeping going? Were you very like, you
It's,
know,
it,
thick-skinned?
it wasn't an option for me. I wasn't ever gonna give up the company. I would have started working Tesco's in the nights, in the evenings. I would have started working weekends. There was absolutely no way I was giving up what I'd built. I put so much effort, time. It's been my life's work so far. 27 years old. People are probably going to laugh when I say my life's work, but it's been something that I built. I'm so proud of it, and it's been everything I've thought about for such a vast amount of years. Some of my mates I used to work 7 days a week for 2, 3 years. My mates were saying you're crazy. Like I was completely obsessed. I still am now, but I now know that you can't work 7 days a week. You've got to give yourself time. In that time, your mind never goes off of work, but you get some time to reflect on things, pull yourself away from the situation to better the situation. And it's I've got too much pride, too much of an obsessive personality with business to have ever let that affect us. Like I said, it's something that I'm glad happened, because we wouldn't be where we are today without that happening.
Do you still have times now, like recently, where you kind of pinch yourself looking at where you are now in comparison to, that moment with that lady?
Um, I do. I mean, there's this cash flow still arises now. It's just on a different scale. So I think there is always problems, but I also now know when them problems come in. I can see these problems coming 2 miles off, and I don't really give myself much time to dwell on the past. I don't like to. I'm not satisfied where we are, and it's very streamlined, very forward. Don't get me wrong. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity that the clients have given us on letting us work with them. Other companies that have given us the opportunity to work with them in the early days, material sort of merchants, things like that have let us build accounts with them. But I don't give myself too much time to look in the rearview mirror. It's very forward, forward, forward. What's the next goal? You reach one goal, boom. What's the next one? 3 steps. Yeah, I've got a crazy mind.
I mean, you have to though. You have to have really crazy ambitions, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but I'm pretty sure Steve Jobs has a quote where he's like, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that actually do," or
Yeah,
something along those lines, right?
yeah,
And like, it's true because like anyone who even gets there is the person who has the ambition to get there and get through the moments that you just mentioned now. Because, for example, anything that you face now, whether it's cash flow issues or problems with clients, whatever it is, you can then look back at those hard times and that moment where you had to pull it pretty much out your own pocket to finish the job,
hmm
and you can just think to yourself that, oh, this probably isn't as hard as that. I can get through this if I got through that, right? And that will just, I mean, these problems will happen over and over again.
hmm
Like even Chris has had a video recently where he talked about having to, find money from from his clients and to actually fix any cash flow issues that he had over the week. But yeah, you need to just push through it, and getting onto, you know, getting to that point in the first place. If someone was on the tools, and maybe they might even be older than you. Some people are still on the tools at that age anyway. And they were thinking about starting. What advice would you give them before they even start or make that leap?
I think for me, the advice would be, and I wish someone said this to me at the start, is get your foundations right. So when I speak about foundations, I speak about getting the business side right first. Numbers, business is numbers. Now, there's two paths you can take in construction. You can do very well being a sole trader. I actually earn more than I do now. You can do very well being a sole trader, building your little company, you and a couple guys going around and doing the work. You can do very well. But if you want to scale, there's the other side where you really do have to know business. So getting your numbers right, being a sponge, learning as much as you can. Books will be your best friend. And you've got to have a strong mind. You have to have a strong mind. If you don't believe in yourself, then it's not going to go well. You've got to be your biggest fan. Um, I'm very into the law of attraction. I'm very into manifesting. For me, phrases, just reminding myself of phrases all the time. I've got discipline tattooed on my hand. It's these things that you just need to tell yourself. Do what you always did, and you'll always get what you always got. Comparison is the thief of joy. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Things like that. Continually tell yourself, and it just helps streamline you to success. There's lots of YouTube videos, motivational YouTube videos, but they're true. You've got to be your biggest fan. You've got to strive to go forward all the time, because situations are going to arise. And if you crumble and you let them get to your head, then you can't duck. You've got to power through it, and you've got to keep going and be strong-willed and strong-minded, really.
Yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to, because also you have to know what you actually want, because a lot of people might think about starting, but they don't realize what comes with that, and they don't maybe think about that. It probably will take like maybe 4 or 5 years for them to get to the point where they are now if they're earning good money as just a tradesman, right? Like it literally could take that long. I mean, you just said now that you used to earn more back then. And it's true, profit wise anyway. Like you will probably take a good few years at least to start making that money that you make now. And if you are just happy with, a consistent lifestyle and knowing that you're going to get that money coming in every single month, then maybe, being a tradesman is the best thing that you can do. And maybe business isn't something that's good for you and good for your lifestyle. It's just depending on the person, to be honest. Especially in construction, where like cash flow issues, profit issues come up every single time, like all the time, no matter how big you are. Because like even in the last year, so many times in the news it's come up, right? Like big 9-figure companies have just gone bust. It still happens till this day. So you think about what you want to do. Think about like what lifestyle you want to live. Think about how long you would want to give it, because it would be a while. But yeah, now you said you started 3 years ago, right? Was that COVID? COVID is still around then, wasn't it? It was still 2021.
Yeah. So I have a funny story about about COVID. And this goes back to the point of you with business. You've got to think outside the box. You've got to always come and try different avenues, things like that. So COVID in the UK, as a lot of people know, UK construction shut down for a few months, I believe. I think there was very few sort of workers that were allowed on site for certain jobs. Anyway, we were shut down. We couldn't work. Sat at home, I was going crazy. So I started thinking. I was very into gym at the time, and I realised people couldn't get weights. So I saw some logs in my garden, and I thought, I've seen a sort of the Flintstone sort of style of weights where you put two logs and a metal bar. So I've done exactly that. I've got my mum's scales, put them down, and I weighed the logs. If they were, I don't know, 10 kilos each, I could make a 20 kilo dumbbell or barbell. So I put a picture on my Instagram story and said, "Oh, look, just made some new weights." I must have had about 30 people message me going, "Mate, are you selling them? How much do you want for them?" Out of nowhere, I was probably clearing about £200 to £300 a day in lockdown, making log weights and barbells to people. My mate was a tree surgeon at the time, so he was selling me cut off of logs for £1 a log. I found a metal company that was still supplying poles through COVID, so they was dropping me poles for like £1 a pole. So I think it was costing me £2 to build a barbell, which I was selling at about £30 or £35 a barbell, and the same £45 for a dumbbell set. And I can send you some photos. I had just a garden full of different weights of barbells and dumbbells. And it got to a point where a fitness sort of Instagram influencer messaged me and said, "Oh, hi Josh, blah blah blah. I've seen the weights you're doing. Um, I'd be interested in recommending these to my clients." I think she had like 1.3 million followers on her Instagram, and I thought, well, hang on, this is getting a bit silly now. I'm going to need a warehouse. And about 2 weeks later, we were allowed back on site. So, yeah, I'm sort of happy that didn't happen because I might have been in the log weight industry right now rather than construction.
Hey, I mean, a lot of businesses that are huge, they're more ideas that people like fall on rather than think of. Like, it's never, most of these really big businesses, people don't realize this. It's not someone sat in a room thinking for like 12 hours a day. They're like, oh, let me think of this $1 million business idea. It's more things that you have a problem or someone else has a problem. And in your case, it was like you were thinking of like using them as weights first for yourself, I'm assuming. And then you started thinking of like posted it online, right?
Mhm.
I mean, who knows? You know, no one knows if it was if it would have been something huge or not. But it would. That's a really cool story. That is.
Yeah, supply and demand, that is.
That's what it comes down to. That's what it
Mhm.
comes down to. When it restarted, when construction restarted in COVID, what was your experiences of everything in comparison to like just how it used to be, right? Because I know COVID changed a lot of things. It wasn't
Yes.
only COVID as well. It was COVID. You got the Russia-Ukraine war. You got like so many things that happened at the same time, and it just changed the market completely. And it's still recovering to like today. It's not fully recovered still.
Yeah.
But yeah, just give people a breakdown of what happened at that time.
So after COVID, it was a strange time. It was a strange time for everyone. In construction, material prices were a massive thing. That was ridiculous. So, for example, and going back to our wardrobe days, I used to quote £20 for a sheet of 18mm MDF, and I knew that I had a little bit on top of that to cover. We got back from COVID, and they were selling sheets of MDF for about £70. So the difference there was, yeah, crazy. Everything that I'd learned over the years of pricing completely went out the window. You could you could look at something and gauge it and say, I think it's going to be about this much, and let the client know. And then if they accept, you go for the final price and etc. But that completely changed after COVID. Delays on materials were a massive thing as well. Concrete was a massive sort of backlog. They just couldn't make it fast enough. Plaster was really bad. I think some people were selling plaster on Facebook for like 25, £30 a bag. And yeah, it was slow. We were lucky in the sense of we had some live projects that shut down prior to COVID, so we could come back after and then just carry on with them. Booking in jobs was a little bit tricky. You had a lot of people hesitant about what to do, but it didn't take too long. Didn't take too long to get things back up and running. I think everyone just really wanted normal life to start again. But the main sort of hardship was material delay and prices, which we did struggle with, and we also honoured. So if we priced a job and the material prices changed, I took it on. I don't really like to tell a client one thing and then completely change my mind. It's cost me a lot in the past, sorry, but it's just how I am. I'm pretty true to my word, and if I tell you something, then that's how it's going to be. Yeah, I'd say material prices and deliveries. But other than that, work was okay. We just slowly built back up.
Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday because the house that I'm sat in right now, we were moving in right. It was like peak COVID. It was during lockdown of 2020, I think, and I remember our plasterer came over, and we had to move in like I think 3 weeks from that time. And he came in. He came in the house, and he was just like, I can't get any plaster anywhere. Like it's
Mm.
just I can't get it anywhere. And we just like we have to. His name's Ped, and we had to move it in 3 weeks. And we're just like, Ped, you have to do something. Like we'll pay you more. It doesn't matter, but just
Yeah.
find us from somewhere. If you have a friend who has it or whatever, we'll buy it off him. And yeah, he made it work. And we actually did manage to move in on time, but that was a big problem during COVID. And Like even now, you have material costs keep like some are still going up. Like even now, it's probably because of like post COVID, and also the UK left the EU as well at the same time. I believe it was like round about the same year. So that probably maybe contributed to it. But like when you talked about that problem of material costs going up from the moment you give an estimate or a quote to someone, right? And then let's just say you're not doing the job for 6 months' time. Do you still stick to it, or do you leave some room now for yourself in case that those costs go up?
So we have something in our contracts now. So until the contract is signed, sorry, not on our contract, in our quotes. So until the contract is signed, special items are liable to change. So if we send you a quote and you want to go ahead in 2 years' time, I'm going to need to reprice it because a lot of this stuff will change. When I say I honour my word, it's whether we've started the project, so you've accepted the quote, you started the project, and then the material price change. And that's when it's not your problem, it's my problem. I need to honour my word, I need to honour my quote. We do have contingency in quotes, so it's fine. It's more just the special order items, aluminium capping on copings, things like that, special insulations, stuff like that. But as soon as that contract is signed, unless it's a provisional sum, then that is it. We will honour our quote, we will honour the contract, and everyone will be happy.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense, and COVID kind of triggered that type of way of doing it. Because before, like if you would price up a job, you'd price it up, they'd sign the contract, they'd say I'm just going to start in like 7-8 months time, and that would be that, right? But then when COVID happened and the material costs absolutely went through the roof, and like even like I mentioned, even today, now a lot of contractors are giving themselves some more wiggle room, or in the T's and C's, or they're doing cost plus, or they're changing the way they're pricing things up. And I want to touch on that because you mentioned when you started out, you went to the books to learn about numbers and margins and all of that, right? If someone's watching and let's just say they've not started yet, right, and they have no idea how the heck you price a job, right? They all in their head it's just like costs, but they don't actually know the whole A to Z of it. Can you give us a brief rundown about how you price jobs right now?
Yeah. So Excel spreadsheets are a great form to get started. I think a lot of people can get scared. So if you're pricing a big job, you look at the sheer amount of it and you get it's too much. So break things down. I've got a real thing with shutting doors on rooms. So break down the works in lists straight away. And then you can just say you've got your plastering, electrical, plumbing, things like this. You can get your subcontractors to price. Go through the lists. And then even if you're pricing something yourself, you have an Excel spreadsheet with your breakdown, so your walls, your flooring, and then you've got you work out your rate per square meter. Square meterage is also a good help in the fact of just getting your price there or thereabouts. We actually use an estimator. It works out more cost effective for me to use an estimator, and then I go through it. We actually use an estimator from Every Trade, from Chris's company. He's called Danny. He's great. But that's how we do it. The small jobs I price myself, but to be honest, the large projects, they do such a great job, and it's a couple £100. So it's for my time to do it, spend 2 days, it just doesn't make sense. But yeah, Excel spreadsheets. There's some great YouTube channels. Dean Barton is a good one. He talks a lot about profit margins, how to price jobs, and getting in contact with a good estimator. If I'm honest, it's the smaller jobs, yes, it's worthwhile, but the larger jobs, they've got the systems in place, they've got the software. You're better off paying the money, getting them to do it, getting a proper breakdown, and then you can just finalize it, go over it, and save yourself all the time, to be honest. That's how we do things.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you mentioned there about outsourcing the estimating because it's not talked about at all right now. I think it's fair to say most people probably do it themselves, but if you're doing especially if you're doing big projects, right, where you don't need to do an estimate like every single week or almost every single day. It does depend on what your project is. If you are doing estimates like every single day, maybe it's different. But I was speaking to someone he's actually from the UK, and he builds houses in the US, but he does like huge projects, like $5 million houses, right? And if he's only doing like 4 or 5 projects a year, so for him, he was talking about how for him, like it doesn't make any sense to do any estimating himself because you're doing
Yeah.
4 or 5 projects a year. Just get another company to do it, and there are companies out there as well that do it. There's plenty of them. You probably get spammed with them all the time in the emails about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a really good suggestion.
Yeah. I think we would sort of a next step for us is I would like to have a QS come on board with us. As you know, we moved into the new office, so we've got a couple sort of desk areas available. So that is the next step for us. Would like to get a QS in house. With our job's getting larger, I do want to take on more than what we currently do. So it's yeah, I think it's going to be the next step.
Yeah, that leads me perfectly into the next question then. So when you're scaling, right, and you're still in that process of scaling, right, scaling your team, getting more people in so that you can take on more work and you can fulfill on it.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways that you recruit people? Like even if it's people just on tools or if it's a bit more high level, what are some softwares or tactics that you use to find the best people?
First of all, I think you've got to build a company that people want to work for. I am very, very close with all of our team. A lot of people older than me will say, "Oh, you don't want to be friends in business," blah blah blah. Everyone in the company, we are all mates. Realistically, we're very close. We're very close knit. Everyone's got each other's back, and teamwork is such a massive thing for us. With that in mind, we do have people want to work with us. It's an enjoyable place to be. I am not your typical boss. I can be hard if you're not being respectful, if you're doing things out of line. But as long as you're a nice human being, you do what's asked. You try your best. You give it 110%. Then everything's fine. We can really be a nice company to work for. Going off of that, Indeed is a good one. Instagram, to be honest, Instagram we got a couple sort of good guys off Instagram. There are a lot of rubbish builders out there, and especially for us, I think we've gone through about 20, 24, 25 people in the last 2 or 3 years come in, got found out, and we've had to let go. We are known for our finish, and we are very good at what we do. So in the company, you can't really get away. You can't say I'm good at this and good at that, because if you come in and do a week's work, you're going to get found out by our team. So I know a lot of people will say it, but we truly do house some of the best. Everyone in the team is extremely talented, and it's taken years and a lot of money, a high day rate to get them on board.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that people shy away from when they're finding someone. They think about the cost behind it a lot, and they might try and cut those costs and get people that aren't that good, but because they're cheap, they can maximize margins from them. Can you talk about how important it is to not be so stingy with your talent and to just try and get the best people in?
Mm-hmm. So in my mind, going cheaper is ridiculous. It's the same with anything. You go out for a meal, you pay £10 for a meal. What's it going to taste like? You pay 80, 90, £100 a meal. It's going to pretty much, likely chance, it's going to taste amazing. It's the same with labor. So if you pay cheap, you're going to pay twice. If you pay a high amount, I'm not saying everyone is always worth the high amount, but you can find out pretty quickly from seeing previous work, from asking people that know them, from trial on site, that having someone that's a high amount to pay is going to cost you less in the long run. Less mistakes, you've got less stress for yourself, meaning you can scale the company better, and it's trust. At the end of the day, they're coming into work for you, and they're going to make yourselves look better. So I think you've got to pay the big money to get the big results. You're not gonna build anything good. Okay, yes, you might get a good profit of one job, but ultimately your reputation is going to be in tatters because you've got a load of people not really knowing what they're doing, cheap as chips, doing a terrible job, and it's just going to be a downward spiral. Whereas if you've got people that are very good at what they do, they're very passionate, they're amazing to the clients, they're talking to the clients, they're representing your workwear, they're smart, they're punctual. It's helping you scale. You've got to pay the money to get the money, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. You've got to invest you've got to invest the money to see the money later. Stop going for a quick sort of pound note. It ain't going to happen. Get the money in now, deal with the sort of cash flow problems, and then you can reap the benefits later on in your journey.
Yeah, that's fine. Now, something cool about yourself is you're actually on YouTube, right? You actually make videos quite regularly. And obviously we had Chris in the first episode. He's been on YouTube for recently as well for the last few months. What made you actually want to start YouTube? Like, what was the inspiration behind that?
I'll be honest. I watch. There's a YouTube channel, Daniel Asheville. I'm obsessed with his channel. He's amazing at what he does. I don't want to copy him, but it's an inspiration in the sense of there's a real lack of knowledge in behind the scenes of building. I know with a lot of my friends, they're in sort of finance, they're in IT, things like that, and they're amazed at some of the stuff we do. So I am very big on marketing. And if there's a free marketing tool like YouTube that can show exactly what your team's like, exactly what your work is like, and show that you are normal, honest people, then I'm going to use it. And I think that's what that was for. My girlfriend Shay does the filming for that. She does all the editing. She's not a professional, so we haven't grown as much as I would like, but at the same time, I know it's not going to. We don't have a professional YouTube manager. We don't have the professional videographer. It's all done by us in-house. And I kind of like how raw it is. I wasn't expecting it to be anything amazing. I just like to get the content out there. It's fun to make. Our guys enjoy it, and it's nice to watch the journey. The journey we've got going on YouTube is the big build, which episode comes out every week. Just going through absolutely everything in that week, the sort of highs and lows, exactly what goes on. And yes, it's just been enjoyable, to be honest. Where we go next, whether we do a weekly, I do not know. If we do a weekly, yeah, I don't know. It's very time consuming, but it is enjoyable. It's enjoyable. So who knows what will happen? There is something in the pipeline, actually. I can't say too much, but there's a possible TV show for us, which is coming up. But a load of NDAs and stuff have been signed. So
fair enough. No, it's all right. I won't push you on that too much. It's okay. But you touched on the series, right? And I've watched a few episodes myself before this. And what, for people that don't know, who haven't watched the videos, what is the big build about?
So the big build is about a project we started this year in January, I believe. It's £1 million build. It's an amazing project. It's one of the biggest we've done. We've got a couple more like that coming up this year. So whether we film them or not, I do not know. But it's basically a journey, a raw journey. It's not really a professional film of what it's like on site. Like I said, the highs and lows, you get to see everything that goes on. You get to see the laughs, you get to see the banner, and you also get to see the reasoning behind things. So you'll see us in the early episodes saying we need to build this wall because we need to account for this. And then coming on 3 months later in the episode, you go, luckily we built the wall earlier on like this to account for this. So it's good. I think it can also be quite educational for people to watch if you're getting into construction. We talk about management, we talk about calendars and schedules on there, and you see the reality of it. So I think at the same time, if you're doubting yourself and you think, oh, why isn't this going right? Why isn't that going right? You can see that other companies also struggle. You can see me stressed out. You can see how we manage the sheer amount of people on site. And yeah, I think it can be really educational, and it can be a funny watch on some episodes as well.
No, it is really well made, and that they are very enjoyable to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I want to talk about as well is you talked about not getting the traction that you wanted, which I'm sure will come anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But we had Lee on, not in the last episode, but the episode before, we had Lee Fuller on, who he does a lot of LinkedIn marketing and he helps a lot of contractors with LinkedIn. But he had his own brickwork contracting company, and basically everything he teaches now came from what he did with that company and to build up into the multi-7-figure mark. And one thing he did, which he talked about in the episode, which is super smart, was he used the content not necessarily to get work directly from or to get traffic from directly, but what he would do is any type of inquiry that came in from anywhere, whatever platform or any type of medium, he would send them his YouTube channel where he had all his videos there. And then, like 90% of the time, what he would do is when an inquiry would come in and he'd send them that YouTube channel, that person would then watch the videos and watch how the company operates and the people behind it, and they would just convert straight away into like an actual closed job or project. So that's one thing he did, which I found was really, really smart. And I think that's one thing a lot of people should do, regardless of whether their channel is quote unquote not doing very well, or even not getting the views that they want. I think that's an amazing play.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I want to touch on as well, and I saw this on your story recently, I believe, I think it might have been a few days ago, but you uploaded like a picture of a tender that you had won. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it looked
Yeah,
like, was it a house, a new build?
yeah. So it's not a new build. It's basically a sort of a large, extensive works to a domestic property. Um, we work closely with quite a few architects, and so yeah, we do quote a lot. I mean, at the minute, I think I looked earlier, we're quoting 17 sort of 500,000 upwards jobs at the minute. Justified, we're not going to win all of them. We're not the cheapest firm by a mile, but we are good at what we do. Uh, yeah, yeah, we haven't got. I think we've got 2 or 3 tenders won that are starting soon. The others are and ahhing, but I can imagine a lot of them are all going to want to start at once, which usually happens. So it's a sort of emotional roller coaster of you think you're going to run out of work, and then all of a sudden you've got a complete mass amount, and yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it does go up and down, and that's like the nature of the industry in general, right? I mean, Chris talked about it in the first episode, and I think he talked about it in a few of his videos as well. But the last year or so, it has been one of the quietest years probably for
yeah.
construction in general.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe it's because of COVID, because I know after COVID it absolutely skyrocketed. Like the work was ridiculous. Everyone wanted to have work done. So
Hmm.
naturally, after a spike, you're going to have a bit of a drop. That's just
Hmm.
natural market trends. So it will pick up again, I'm sure, in the next couple of years or so. Um, but like when you were doing that tender, right, or doing the tender, I've read about the tenders and I've done research on them, and I've noticed that there's a lot of common mistakes people make when they're tendering projects. Can you talk a bit about like what are common mistakes people make, and also a bit about like the way you tender a project and any type of common themes that you use?
Yeah. So I think a common mistake for people is not replying. I think you've got to be not replying as such, sorry, but not being quick with action. So showing interest straight away, saying this is a great project. I'd really love to be on this one. Blah blah blah. Showing your interest. It's just going to make the architects feel better. It's going to make the clients feel better. Being a nice person with the clients. Just being a friendly person. People love people. So I think if you're just a nice person going to their property, you're respectful, you're punctual, you're knowledgeable in what you say, you've got a good reputation, and you can back that up. I mean, we say to a lot of our clients, look, we've got X amount of projects in your local area. All of our clients are more than happy for you to come and have a look at the job. And most of them are. They come out, they have a look, they can even come to some of our live sites and they can see us working, they can see the team, and we're not hiding under a rock. As I said earlier, we've got a new office now, which is a sort of showroom office area. So we are situated in a industrial estate just outside of Reigate, which is where we normally work. We've got a name above the door now outside, and I built this area with a lot of details. So we've spent a lot of money on it. It's a really nice area. It's got a lot of Howden's joinery. It's got different acupanels, different flooring, herringbone flooring, really nice details throughout. Because I want this area to be an area clients can come and they can sit with us. They can design their project, because there's nowhere like that really. I've got loads of different finishings all over the office, so I can reference this, I can reference that. You can speak with us, we can pull your plans up on the TV, we can design your whole project. And I think that also helps in the fact of, what, we're not running anywhere, our name is here, we're situated here, and I think it helps build that trust with the client.
Yeah, 100%. And like you touched on speed right in the beginning of that, and I'd say speed is like one of the biggest problems that a lot of contractors have. Like even right now, right? Like my dad wants to get he has a huge like back garden, front garden, and drive. It's probably about like 300 square meters in total,
Mhm.
and he wants to get it all done in either tarmac or concrete. So basically, he just asked me to help him out finding someone. And like the amount of people that I've called or messaged and they've not got back to me, and like they get back to me like 3 days or 4 days later, and I'm just thinking like really, right? Like this is such a simple thing. Like getting back to people within that give you inquiries is such a basic thing.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of builders, just for some reason, they're so rubbish at it, and it's
Mhm.
probably either because they're on site, or I don't. To be even then, I don't know what it is, but it's such a big problem, and speed is the most important thing that you can do
Yeah.
to increase your success rate when it comes to getting work or getting a job.
Mhm.
Because human beings are fickle, right? They'll go up and down with emotions. They might want a kitchen one day, they might want a bathroom the day after. They do change emotions, and I'm sure you get it all the time with people like inquiring and they want to do a project, and then maybe a week later they're like, don't really want to do it anymore. Like we've changed our mind. That happens all the time, so it's normal. And let's just say someone changes their mind at day 4 or day 5, but you close the project on day 2, then you've closed the project, right? It's a big difference. So
Mhm.
speed is important, and yeah, I mean, even if you do a test run and you call 10 builders, I'm sure like half of them aren't going to pick up the phone the first time.
Well,
Um,
they're too busy. I remember being in that situation where you're a sole trader, you're working on site, someone's calling you, you say, yeah, yeah, sorry, I'll call you back later. You're gonna forget about it. You're too busy. So that's where I think having systems. We've got a system where in our website, sorry, you just send a contact form. If it's on email, it's a lot better for us because we might not always be able to pick up the office phone. Send us an email, it will always be answered, and we represent that with a lot of our stuff. Send us a message on Instagram, you'll get a message saying, please email us, blah, blah, blah. So I think putting things in place like that you can simplify it will really help benefit the hardship on site of not being able to answer the phone and not being able to always do admin. You can do it in the evening, but some people aren't always going to want a phone call in the evening, and also you're going to burn out. So this also comes on to implementing the right people. So if you're going in the other lane, like I spoke about, and scale a construction company, you need someone in admin that is going to answer quickly. There, done. Follow-ups, send a quote, call them. So don't just send the quote. Send the quote, call them, say hi, Mrs. Blah blah blah. I've just sent you a quote across. Please, if you've got any questions, give us a shout. But let us know. Things like that just gets you a personal touch to the client. You're not this big corporate monster that's just sent over a massive figure. Suddenly you've got the personal touch, and people like that, and they want to be able to work with someone that they can trust. So yeah, I think that's a main sort of factor and a thing to keep in mind.
yeah, and I spoke to someone who runs a garden room company, right? Maybe about 3 months ago. Brilliant guy, and he does something so simple but so effective when he does quotes, right? And garden rooms are like more of a design project. Like there's a lot of design involved in them. And what he does is he does a 3D design like most do, But then an extra thing that he does, which most companies don't do, is he sends a Loom video with the quote, walking through the quote and talking about it. And it's a short video, it's like 10 minutes long. But that little video and that little extra added personal touch can literally be a huge difference. And someone might be ready to pay a bit more if the cost is a bit higher than other people, because they trust you more because you've gone out of your way and you've done that small thing for them. And it sounds so basic, but like from the customer's perspective, that's a huge difference between you and someone else. And it's about doing those little things that are going to separate you from essentially your competition, right? Quote unquote. A lot of people don't think about those type of things. But penultimate question, Josh. I know you said you record the big build and you've got a few more projects starting. But do you have a dream project that you want to do in like the next 5 years or so?
Yes. I would love to start Joshua Lewis Homes. So it's something that I've been dreaming up for quite some time. The thought of purchasing land and building homes with our team excites me massively. I have no doubt that we could build some of the most amazing homes in Britain. So it's something we're working towards. Obviously, it's not going to start such a massive buy 100 acres and build footballers' homes. It's going to be something that we start small, but it's definitely going to be something we start. There's a few others. I mean, I'd like to start an electrical and plumbing side of the company, but I try to sort of focus on one thing. Otherwise, I'll just end up getting nothing done. So the next step for us really is Joshua Lewis Homes, which I posted something on Instagram, which goes into the law of attraction. There's 4 companies that I posted up, all with our logo, and if it's up there, then for me it's streamlined. It's as long as it's on the mind, then it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
That's such a cooler project, and it is a natural progression as well. A lot of contractors who do well in construction, their normal next steps are either got to go into property development or build their own home. So it's a cool idea. Right. I don't know if you've watched the Diary of a CEO, but the way Stephen ends his podcast, which is a thing that I've just stolen, is he asks a question to the guest that the last guest asked, and then he asks the current guest to ask a question to the next guest. Right? Sounds a bit confusing, but it's pretty straightforward. So basically, in the last episode, we had someone from the US called Dennis, right? And he has a huge Instagram account called Builder Brigade. And he's not a builder himself, but he basically makes content for homeowners to help them making decisions or important decisions about their home and about their projects. And the question that he asked, which was a really good question, is he said, as a builder, what's a problem you run into on a regular basis that should already have a solution?
People management. So I think a lot of people can go wrong with people management in construction, and think that they're a sort of victim mentality. You've got to realise that if you're having problems with someone in a certain area, you're the one that implemented them to be in that area. Ultimately, it does come down to you. It's your problem. So yeah, I think people management for me is something that arises quite a lot, but we're getting better knowing that, look, the situation has happened because you put that there, or this has happened because you put designated for that job, or things like that. So I think ultimately, yeah, people management and sort of realizing that it's down to you and you're the one that made the sort of issue in the first place.
That's a brilliant answer. Right then, so if you could ask a question to the next guest, and bearing in mind they are in construction industry, or at least an ex-contractor anyway, which is a bit of a hint, but what would you ask them?
On the spot. If you could steer your career path as a builder in a different direction than what you have, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really good question. That's a brilliant question because a lot of builders like they spend their whole lives in the trade, right?
Hmm.
And especially in construction, a lot of people start off really young. Like I mean, you said you started off at 19. Other people start off at 16, 17, and maybe they retire in their 60s or 70s, right? So I like that question. It's a brilliant one.
Thank you.
All right then, Josh. Thank you for. Sorry, did you say something?
I said, yeah, I didn't think I'd get a good question. You put me on the spot.
No, it was. I mean, I said it in the last podcast, but I get a bit jealous sometimes when there's really good questions from the guests because I'm like, why did I not think about that? But
Yeah,
no, that was a good one. But yeah, no, Josh, this has been really amazing.
thank
I
you.
think people will really resonate with your story, especially from the UK. People like are starting out, or maybe they're just starting out their business. So yeah, thank you for hopping on. All Josh's links will be in the description if you're watching on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, or if you even on came from Instagram, then you can find his links in the video and tagged in all the videos. Even a Spotify will be in the description. So yeah, guys, see you guys next time.
Thank you.